నరేందర్ సార్
మేడం
స్టార్ట్ చేయండి సార్. నమస్తే. నాదేదో ప్రాబ్లం అయింది, ఇప్పుడు కనెక్ట్ అయింది సార్. నాకు కనబడుతుంది జాయిన్ అయినట్టు, బట్ మీరు స్టార్ట్ చేయండి, టైం అయింది కదా.
అందరికీ నమస్కారం. ఈరోజు వెబినార్ సెషన్ ఎడ్యుకేషన్, లీడర్షిప్ అండ్ మేనేజ్మెంట్ పైన ఉంటుంది. ఈ సెషన్ కి ఆర్పీగా శ్రీ శశాంక్ పరిమి గారు వ్యవహరిస్తారు. శశాంక్ పరిమి గారు టిస్ నందలి సెంటర్ ఫర్ ఎడ్యుకేషన్, ఇన్నోవేషన్ అండ్ యాక్షన్ రీసెర్చ్ విభాగం నందు టీమ్ లీడ్ గా పనిచేస్తున్నారు. అంతేకాకుండా టీచర్ ప్రొఫెషనల్ డెవలప్మెంట్ అండ్ రీస్ట్రెంథనింగ్ ఆఫ్ డైట్స్ అనే అంశంపై కూడా శశాంక్ పరిమి గారు ఛత్తీస్గఢ్ గవర్నమెంట్ తో కలిసి పనిచేశారు. ఇవే కాకుండా డైట్ ఫ్యాకల్టీ కొరకు వివిధ రకాలైనటువంటి కెపాసిటీ బిల్డింగ్ ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ రూపొందించి అమలు కూడా చేయడం జరిగింది. అలాగే లాంగ్వేజ్ ఎడ్యుకేషన్ విభాగంలో మధ్యప్రదేశ్ గవర్నమెంట్ తోనూ, ట్రైబల్ మైగ్రేట్స్ అనే అంశం పైన భోపాల్ గవర్నమెంట్ తోనూ కూడా కలిసి పనిచేసినటువంటి అనుభవం శశాంక్ పరిమి గారికి ఉంది. ఈ రోజు ఈ సెషన్ లో ప్యానెల్ మెంబర్స్ గా శ్రీ ఎస్ సురేష్ బాబు గారు, రిటైర్డ్ ప్రొఫెసర్ ఎస్సిఆర్టి, మరియు ఈ సోమశేఖర శర్మ డైట్ ఖమ్మం నుండి, మరియు పి మాధవి ఎస్సిఆర్టి నుండి ప్యానెల్ మెంబర్ గా వ్యవహరిస్తారు. సాంకేతిక సహాయకులుగా జి శ్రీనివాస్ రెడ్డి గారు వ్యవహరిస్తారు. ఐ రిక్వెస్ట్ శ్రీ శశాంక్ పరిమి గారు టు టేక్ వెబినార్ సెషన్. శశాంక్ పరిమి.
Thank you, sir. Good morning all. So okay, so రోజు మన webinar is on education, education, leadership and management, and then ఈ webinar లో I'll try to switch between Telugu and Hindi, Urdu, so that అందరికి like అందరికి కొంచెం ఇంక్లూజివ్ గా అందరినీ కొంచెం ఇంక్లూడ్ చేయడానికి. तो ये आज का वेबिनार एजुकेशन, लीडरशिप और मैनेजमेंट के ऊपर है, और मैं इस वेबिनार में थोड़ा अपना जितना हो सके उतना लैंग्वेज स्विच करने की कोशिश करूंगा, ताकि आप सब इसका मतलब इस वेबिनार का पार्ट हो सके. సో ఇవాళ మన సెషన్లో మనము 4 మెయిన్ ఆస్పెక్ట్స్ ఏదైతే ఉందో అది కవర్ చేస్తామో. జస్ట్ ఈ కనబడుతున్న 4 మెయిన్ ఆస్పెక్ట్స్ నేను కవర్ చేస్తాను. అండ్ దెన్ దీని తర్వాత మీరు దాన్ని ఎలా మీరు ఈ సెషన్ తర్వాత దీంతో ఎలా ఎంగేజ్ అవ్వచ్చో, ఇంకా ఎలా మీరు ఇంకా దీన్ని ఈ రిసోర్సెస్ ఏవైతే ఉన్నాయో దాన్ని మంచిగా యూజ్ చేయొచ్చు, అది కూడా కొంచెం జస్ట్ ఆ डायरेक्शन ఇస్తాం. सो इस सेशन में बेसिकली हम क्या करेंगे कि ये जो मेन 4 चीजें हैं, दिस 10 लीडरशिप थ्योरीज, एंड देन 4 जनरल मैनेजमेंट थ्योरीज, एंड बेसिक्स ऑफ नॉलेज मैनेजमेंट एंड स्कूल लीडरशिप रिसोर्सेस. सो इन 4 टॉपिक्स को हम कवर करेंगे, एंड देन उसके बाद मैं आपको थोड़ा ये जो आखिरी का पार्ट है स्कूल लीडरशिप रिसोर्सेस, I'll just show much more resources that you can refer to after this session. Okay. సో మనము लीडरशिप थ्योरीज నుంచి स्टार्ट చేద్దాము. हम ये लीडरशिप थ्योरीज के साथ स्टार्ट करते हैं, और देन जो 10 लीडरशिप थ्योरीज हैं, तो I'll just introduce them, and then basically these are the core principles through which any this was the first time like from where this whole issue where the leadership and theories and culture just came up. Yeah. So the first is Yeah, so the first is the great man theory. So Thomas Carlyle suggested this theory that great leaders are born and are not made. సో 1840s లో థామస్ కార్లైల్ ఏం సజెస్ట్ చేశాడంటే ఒక లీడర్షిప్ థియరీ దట్ ఇప్పుడు గ్రేట్ లీడర్స్ ఎవరైతే ఉంటారో దే ఆర్ జస్ట్ బోర్న్ విత్ దట్ ఎబిలిటీ అండ్ దెన్ అది ఇన్ జనరల్ నర్చర్ చేయలేము. सो जो जितने भी ग्रेट लीडर्स हैं वो कुछ स्पेसिफिक ट्रेट्स और कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स के साथ बाय बर्थ उनके पास रहता है. सो जिसकी वजह से वो एक लीडरशिप पोजीशन पे आ सकते हैं. So in general, to be like there were a few strengths of it, and then like there were a lot of loopholes in it. So the main strength that was there is at least it started the the whole domain of where one started researching about traits and characteristics to leadership, and then what constitute a leader. But basically the main the like it was very flawed because it lacked scientific validity and it only considered men in power. So like because of that also it came into a debate. And also as you can and also as like a 19th century sociologist, Herbert Spencer, had argued the point that great leaders may be shaped by their society, not the other way around. So also in general ఇప్పుడు మనము ఈ లీడర్షిప్ థిयोरीज और ये जो लीडरशिप थ्योरीज है इसका एक परफेक्ट एग्जांपल अगर हम देखना चाहें, सो इन जनरल మనకి ఈ తెలుగు సినిమాలు ఇంకా ఏ అయినా సినిమాలు మనం చూస్తే దాంట్లో హీరోయిజం అనేది లైక్ ఆ ఒక్క ఆస్పెక్ట్ ఏదైతే ఉందో in general that is born through the great man theory. Like since birth that person is born to lead. So yeah, so that is the general like the great man theory that is there. Okay, so the second theory that is there is the trait theory. So like in the early 1900s there were a few researchers who summarized the traits that like held by great leaders. So basically like all those great kings and then all those great leaders who were there, they just summarized what were their traits, and then what were their traits and how like these helped and they hypothesized that how they proposed that these are the main traits that have to be there in a leader, so that a person can become a good leader. So so actually the problem with this theory is that this is like uh, very exhaustive. I mean, there are so many leadership traits that are there. It's really very difficult to narrow down to a single set of traits that can be pinpointed towards the towards what points or what constitutes as a great leader. And and also this approach is very subjective. And then one more thing, and like it takes a lot of situation and in general the followers of into account, and it's really not that much useful when we are talking about or when we are imparting training on leadership and management. And then because it was a summarized result of great leaders throughout the history. This list has is very masculine, and then it provides a very biased list that make up a leader. So in modern times, for us, it is very difficult to take this up as a valid theory. So इसमें इस जो ट्रेड थ्योरी है उसमें एक जो मेन इसमें एक जो मेन स्ट्रेंथ है वो ये है कि पूरे जो जो पूरा अपना हिस्ट्री है उसमें जितने भी ग्रेट लीडर्स रहे हैं तो उनके मेजर ट्रेट्स को लेके एक एग्जॉस्टिव लिस्ट बनाई गई जिससे उन्होंने डिफाइन किया कि एक लीडर क्या है और एक लीडर के अंदर क्या मेन ट्रेट्स होने चाहिए। और उसके ऊपर उन्होंने हाइपोथेसाइज किया कि ये एक अच्छा लीडर है या अगर इसमें ऐसे कुछ कुछ सेट ऑफ ट्रेट्स हैं। बट इसका एक जो मेजर ड्रॉबैक ये था कि ये मतलब इन जनरल जो लीडर के फॉलोअर्स होते हैं और जनरल कोई एक सिचुएशन है जहाँ पर उन्होंने एक नैरेटिव सेट किया है तो वो नैरेटिव को नहीं अकाउंट करता। एंड देन ऑल्सो इसका एक मेजर जो इशू ये है कि इसके जो बहुत सारे ट्रेट्स उन्होंने लिस्ट डाउन किए हैं वो थोड़े मर्दाना है नेचर में, जिसकी वजह से बहुत एक बायस क्रिएट होता है जब अपन एक लीडर की बात करते हैं। तो इट्स नॉट रियली तो ये अपने जो इतना ये यूजफुल नहीं है। so yes, okay, so then the next two theories that are there that is one skill theory and then the style theory. So the skill theory is that a certain so basically it's very simple that a certain like somebody possessing certain skill sets make the leader successful. So and these skills can involve multiple skills like how what I have pointed out here, like technical skills, people skills, and conceptual skills. So for example, if somebody if somebody has to lead a hospital, so it's better to have a medical person to lead the hospital rather than somebody who has done an somebody who has done an MBA ideally. So basically that is how it happens. So for example, somebody who is working in marketing and sales, they should have people skills. And then different conceptual skills that involve in different various functions. So for example, for example, a teacher must like kind of empathize and try to understand the needs of a student to be a good lead a better classroom. So it's like just a like very vague example, but that it's like that. So the style theory. So the style theory is in general it focuses on different leadership styles. అంటే ఇప్పుడు మనం చూస్తూ ఉంటాం కదా కొంతమంది లీడర్షిప్ పొజిషన్ లో ఉన్నోళ్ళు దే లైక్ సమ్ ఆర్ వెరీ ఫ్రెండ్లీ, సమ్ ఆర్ వెరీ డెమోక్రటిక్ వేర్ they take in account everybody's opinion, and then a few are really very rigid and then they like to do what they want to do. And then and as like similar other traits that are there. So this theory generally focuses on that specific aspect. Yeah. So, okay. So the next two things is that one is the situational leadership theory, and then the contingency theory. So how so what happens in situational leadership theory? So basically, situational leadership theory focuses that uh, a good leader generally would adapt to the current situation, and they will adapt and then grow whatever the situation is, however tricky it is, however tough it is. So that is how that the theory is that is what the main principle of this theory is. And also the contingency theory says that the basically whoever is in the leadership position, that person needs to adapt to that situation. But what happens is that after a while, that leader will go back to his or her own style and approach that that person takes. So basically, under this theory, how this how leadership is defined is that based on the situation, the uh, right leader should be put in that situation. So, for example, so a very real world example for this would be cricket. So if you watch cricket, we have three formats of cricket. One is Test cricket, the longer format. One is the one day internationals, and then one is the 2020 crickets. One is the 2020 format. So basically, if we have to look at if we look at cricket through this theory, they say that you need a new captain for the team in each of the theory, in each of the format. So for example, in 2020 cricket, you need someone else, and then in one day you need someone else, and then in test you need someone else. So uh, I think around 10 years ago or something, if I'm right, we had in Indian cricket team also had followed this approach, that for test for the test cricket for the test team, Anil Kumble was the captain, and then for one day and T20, I think it was MS Dhoni who was the captain. So basically, so this that can be put under the circle of this contingency theory, that there is a situation, and then this leader is perfect for that situation, so you just place that leader in that situation. Yeah. Okay. So the next two things are the next two theories that are there are one is the transactional theory and the other is transformational theory. So the transactional theory is uh, can be really put in as the modern the is the modern way most of the uh, or the corporates or any other organization works, that there is a certain amount of rewards and punishment, and then uh, a fair and equitable transaction that takes place. So if you work well, and then if your if your output is really high, then there are certain incentives attached to it. And then if you do not work well, and then your performance falls down, there is a risk of you losing your job. So that is how, like, basically this theory covers, like, if there is a fair and equitable transaction that takes place, people will follow that, people will follow the leadership. And okay, so the transformational theory. So basically, how how this theory works is that most of the leaders in general get results by transforming the environment and relationships. So basically the leader continuously motivates and then talks and then encourages the followers or whoever are there towards a proper vision, and then the results are there. So I have a very perfect example for it, but I'm not gonna say it because it will be very political in nature. So I'll just let it go. Yeah. So okay. So these are the final two leadership theories. One is the leader-member exchange theory, and the last one is servant leader theory. So what does leader-member exchange theory wants? So talks about. So the leader-member exchange theory in general talks about that if there is it's more of a mentorship model, and also it's about peer learning. So the leader who is there who is at that position, so the leader will listen to what his follower is talking about, and at the same time he will actively mentor that like in general any follower that is. So there is a proper exchange that takes place between the two, and then both grow together. So that is what in general the this leader member exchange theory talks about. And the last theory of leadership that I'll just introduce is the servant leader theory. So basically under the servant leader theory, the leader is basically focused on like serving, like if the leader is much more hands-on rather than just giving orders or just giving tasks. So basically because that because that leader is engaging with all his followers or all his followers basically. So which generally this theory just says that this will make the results go up. So and then this in general you can get higher performance uh, from your followers is what this theory states like. And uh, a good example for this servant leader theory will be Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and similar Mother Teresa. So similar people who are there, like who basically like were there, served on the front, and then created a proper environment of trust and cooperation, so through which they got a reciprocal service. So that is like some of the examples. And also just if we go back in history, and you see that there were many kings, and like who used to just dress up in a dress up in a way, and then they used to go out in the general bazaar and then uh, mingle with the crowd. And also a fun example that can be there is that I hope everybody has in general seen I think everybody has seen the movie Bahubali. So in Bahubali 2, when like his Bahubali's mother sends him to just survey the whole land that he has. So that is also just one example. So similarly, you can like look at such examples can be there in everywhere that you can look upon, and then you can analyze it. And in general, you can just build the foundation of, so basically this is the foundation on which the whole the study of leadership has leadership has evolved into. And through this, at least this is the foundation, and through this you can uh, create or function in a much more effective way. So that is there. And also there are a certain like the modern leadership theories when it comes to school leadership, or in general leadership, or community leadership, or any leadership. There are a certain uh, principles that have also been floated around. So the certain principles that have been floated around, like there are around like 10-14 principles that are there, uh, that people focus on. Is that a leader should always think about backward design. That is, they know their end goal, and then they can design their approach in a backward manner. And also that the whole ownership theory, that leaders are in general owners of what uh, leaders are in general like own up to the actions. And leaders should also be really uh, they should really take calculated risks, so that which also leads to ownership. So that if uh, if anything goes wrong, the leader is there for the so-called followers, or whoever are in his team or her team. So yeah, so that is the in general gist of the leadership theories and all. So yeah, just okay, fine, just moving on. So so when we talk about leadership in modern times, it just not enough to just talk about the leadership theories. We also need to understand about the management theories that are there, and through which every aspect of like, be it any organization, be it a government organization, non-government organization, a university, in general, a government structure, or any office that works on, it's really very important to know about these theories, so that you can build on these theories. The foundation is laid, and then you can build on these theories, keeping them in mind, and then lead an effective environment. So like in general, if you can just see what like, this is just the definition of what do we really mean by management theories. So the management theory is just like general rules that guide the managers to manage an organization. So there are, so for example, for a college, there are a certain set of rules. For an institution, there are certain set of rules. For a school, there are certain set of rules. So these rules and guidelines that are there, they generally help the head teacher, the teacher, to kind of achieve the goals and the vision that has been set by uh, that has been set by that has been set by, and then it will be easier for them to follow and achieve that goal. So what I'll do right now is I'll just introduce 4 major management theories to you, and we'll really not go into deep, because if we start discussing this in deep, 1 hour won't be enough, and then we'll be having more of a management class rather than an education domain class. So yeah, so there are 4 basic general management theories. So one is the theory of scientific management by Frederick Taylor. The second is administrative management theory by Henry Fayol, and then the third is bureaucratic theory of management by Max Weber, and then the fourth is behavioral theory of management by Elton Mayo. So these are the four theories that I'm just gonna introduce, and then you can just read up more about this. I'll just show you the resources where if you're interested and if you want to know more, you can in general go and visit that resource and get more knowledge of it. Okay, so this was Frederick Taylor and his theory of scientific management. So basically his theory of scientific management largely came up during the Industrial Revolution, where there were more the labor workforce in a factory or somewhere. It is more relevant to it is more relevant to them in yeah. So it's more relevant to them, so because it talks about economic efficiency of a factory, and then the labor productivity, and then a fair day pay for a fair day work. And through that he came up with a system which is known as the differential rate piece rate system. And through the productivity of a said worker, that like the wages that were decided, and then it was then it was paid to them. So basically I'll just I'll not go in detail, but I'll just tell this to you in a very quick manner, that on your left you can see that the Taylor's differential piece rate plan that is there. So this was the piece rate plan that Taylor put forward to pay a said work to uh, to pay a set worker the wages for a day, because mostly during that time it was daily wages rather than the current system that is there. So so this was calculated based on the units produced by a said worker, and then the normal piece rate of that say a pencil. So if like units produced by a worker, like the worker produced 10 pencils, and then each pencil is 1 rupee each. So so basically how it will be calculated is that if the worker was told that you had to produce only 5 pencils, and the worker produced 10 pencils, so he would be paid 120% of the normal piece rate. So, and similarly, if the worker had produced less less pencils, say less than 5, so he would be paid 80% of the normal piece rate. So that was decided at every factory based on that, and we'll really not go into calculations and all. So that is just what it's there, you can just see. And then he laid down four basically principles of scientific management, that uh, how to increase the efficiency of any job that is performed. And this is also in general relevant to the modern times as well. So the first was time and motion studies. So basically in this what he says is that you need to look at you need to study how a certain job is performed, and then through that you can find new ways to do them that we generally do. It's also very pretty much relevant to our when we say in teaching as well. So we in general study how we teach, and then through that, and we have studied studied it throughout the time, and we're still studying it. And then we come up with ways to uh, new ways to teach. So how we can see, like in the 20th century, like education was more, it was said more to be teacher centric, but in the 21st century it has shifted to, it should be child centric. And then earlier we used to focus on the 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic, but right now we are focusing on the 21st century skills, the 4 C's: collaboration, critical thinking, uh, communication, and so on. So that is what he also like laid down at that time. And then one more thing is that the second thing was that teach, train, develop the workman with improved methods of doing work. And in general, it stands true for us as well, because we constantly we are introduced to new methods, and then like there are improved methods, and and then those methods are then like they are codified into rules. for for example, I don't know if you have like it's there on the papers, it's on social media, that Kerala teacher, how the Kerala teacher used virtual reality in her online classroom. So that is just an example. So similarly, we need to develop uh, the workforce with the improved methods of doing work, so that it's more efficient. And then the third is that the what Taylor said was that the interest of employer and employees should be fully harmonized. So that so basically what he says is that the person who is employing you, and the person who is working, they should at least understand, and they should have a common interest and a common vision between them, so that there is no friction, and then things work smoothly, and then optimal impact is achieved. And the fourth one was that there should be a fair level of if there is a fair level of performance, and the premium should be there for that high performance. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, so basically, if the performance is constantly good, so there should be some premium for higher performing people. Okay, so moving on to the next theory. The next theory is the administrative management theory by uh, Henry Fayol. So so basically what Henry Fayol did was that he said that like in general, specialization of the workforce will increase productivity. So, and then like he's also known as the father of management of modern theory, because most of how every organization is working right now is on largely on this theory that he has laid down. So he has laid down 14 principles, which directly talks about technical and managerial activities. So yeah. So yes, so the first is that the division of work. So what he says is that based on the skills that a certain someone has, and a person with a specific skill, not a general skill, for example, can be distinguished and then put into that place that will increase its productivity. So that if you can see, even when we are studying bachelor's, master's, or any other course that we want, there is a proper a core subject that we study. So even I think even when we even when we do MEd or PEd or DL or DEd, there is a specialization subject that we choose, like be it maths pedagogy, language pedagogy, and then social science, and so on and so on and so forth. So basically like that is what he talks about when he lays down his first principle, that the division of work should be there, so that that specialist is placed in that domain. So the second one is that authority and responsibility. So if there is some if there is a hierarchy and then and there is a right given to the management to give orders, so there is a certain amount of chain that is followed, so that helps in more discipline, obedience, and then uh, in and then in for and then like good conduct in a workplace, and then mutual respect for the authority, the person in power, and so on. So that is what he generally talks about when it's authority, responsibility, and discipline. Now, when that is there, and then when he talks about the unity of command, like unity of command is in that there is a team lead, and then the team lead is only supposed to give assign tasks or give orders to like that particular section of employees, or on behalf of the superior, or on the basis of whatever that is needed. And similarly, there is a the unity of direction, where every group of that organization and the activities that is being performed should have a common goal, and there should be a like every manager or every person, every head teacher should have one plan for achievement of that common goal. And also then subordination of individual interest to general interest. So how the person's individual interest aligns with the whole organization's interest. And then remuneration, that all workers must be paid a fair wage for their services. And centralization and decentralization. And then there is a scalar chain of communication, and then there is a systematic order or hierarchy that is there. So if you can see, there is the modern day work system, or the modern day like modern day organizations that are there, they're largely based on like this this theory of management. Yeah, so yes. Yeah, and in general, these are the these are the additional 4 theories: and equity, stability of tenure, and then initiative, and then esprit de corps. It means promoting team spirit. So these are the basic 14 principles laid down by Henry Fayol, through which almost all the modern companies work on. Yeah, you can just see the snapshot of it. This is it, and then this is the basic principles through which the current modern company sorry. Okay. So the third one is by Max Weber's bureaucratic theory of management. Max Weber was not only known for his management theories, but he was also known for his theories about uh, his theories about sociology. And then his most famous theory of sociology was the theory of stratification. So we'll not go that, we'll not discuss the theory of stratification, but we'll just in general discuss what talked about his bureaucratic theory. So basically what he talks about is that there are basically only three types of power in an organization, be it like government, non-government, private, public, etc., etc. So there is either traditional power, there is charismatic power, or there is bureaucratic power or legal power that is there. So he just talks about that. And then when he say power, he means that obedience through force, and then and so that people adhere to regulations. So basically, because he was also a sociologist, and then he was also uh, his ideals were more of a socialist environment. So his work was always in the gray area of capitalism and communism. So that is in general what Weber talks about. So you can just see like how it is, like what are the main features. So like there is a division of labor, and then there is a formal hierarchical structure, and then the selection is based on technical expertise, and the management is by rules. There are proper written documents for everything, and then only the legal power that is imparted on someone is very important. And then there are formal and impersonal relations that are there. So you can just see like I've just tried to, it's not 100% accurate, but I've just tried to map the our education bureaucracy on the right side. So with help of my professors at TISS. So this is not completely accurate, but this is like somewhat it looks like. Yeah, I've just tried to map it. Okay. So the last theory is the theory of behavioral management. And like he basically, Elton Mayo also checked the validity of Hawthorne effect. So basically what he talks about is that the work environment, how like plays a really good role in the productivity of a said employee. So you can also see this rule is also followed by most of uh, the multinational companies, and then the corporates that are there. They try to like big companies like Google, Microsoft, Apple, they all try to make their office very creative, and they feel like it's all like quite they constantly change it so that it's good for their employees, and then the productivity increases. So that is that. So this was about the basic uh, this was about the basic management theories. And because we're running out of time, I'll just run through this, and then maybe in the question answers we can take any specific questions. So why I wanted to cover knowledge management is that whether it's in modern times, it's really necessary for us to know like what all knowledge that is there, that is out there, and then how we can actually create that current knowledge management system, so that we can get that info, like for whatever like for example open education repositories. And then in general we have a YouTube for educational videos, and and we have like search engines where we can, so this is all kind of a knowledge management, but we must know like what to search, what are the keywords. I just wanted to just run through this, so that so in general, like what is the basic purpose of knowledge management? It's that so that to ensure that the right information is delivered to the appropriate place or competent person at the right time to enable an informed decision. So and then there also reliable and secure information, so that like we see that why knowledge management is very important in modern times is also due to there are so much fake news that is spread. So we need to combat that. So that is also really very, that is why also knowledge management is really very important. And the correct knowledge management system has proven to increase the efficiency of said people up to 95%. So I'll what kind of knowledge managements are there? So basically we have tacit knowledge, which is dynamic and believes in intellectual capital, which invests in experience and expertise of people. And then the knowledge that is that we are talking about is embedded in the human mind through their experience and jobs that they have performed over the years. And then the know-how is, and how to perform a certain set of job, and the learning of it is embedded within the minds of people. And then this whole experience comes from personal wisdom and experience. It's really very it's very context specific. Like for example, we talk about like doctors, engineers, blacksmith, or carpenter, plumber. So it's really very context specific knowledge that is there, and it's really very difficult to extract and document. And in general, because it also includes intuitions that are there, like while doing a job based on experience. So it's really very this type of knowledge is really very difficult to uh, measure. So the other is the explicit knowledge that is there. So this is the knowledge which is generally codified, and it is also very measurable. So it talks about uh, like for example, documents, policies, artifacts, procedures, and then books, documents, reports. So in general, like any document, a manual that is there. So knowledge that is easily identified and then articulated, shared, and then implemented. Okay, so this is the main framework for knowledge management, that is DIKW, data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. As you can see, there is a lot of individual facts, figures, and measurements that are there out, like that is there, the data. So what you have to do is you have to put context into that data, filter it, and then it becomes information. It's structured, categorized, and then useful, so that it can be used. And then once you put meaning in that information becomes knowledge. This whole like the when we're talking about the information, not really getting a perfect example for it, but in general, if there is an information about, say, like there were fetch simulations out there, and then there is a tool known as Storyweaver. So this is the information that you're getting. So now you have to put meaning to it. How will you use it in your classroom? And when you deliver it, then it becomes knowledge. And similarly, when there is like when you get insights through this knowledge, then it becomes wisdom. So then it aids in decision making process, and then you generally can reflect upon what you have done. So this is the whole the framework for knowledge management. This is also happens in our mind, in our brain, that we know data, then we put context to it, then it is stored as an information, and we try to put meaning into it, it becomes knowledge, and then we get insight, so that it turns into a wisdom. Okay, so talking about like knowledge management in the perspective of technology, we have the basic knowledge management system, which is emails, database that is there, and then repository. And then there is a complex system as well, which like in that is used in a large scale, that is the knowledge management systems and the workflow technologies that are there. They are generally used by like large organizations. So when you are when you are thinking of school leadership, you should I'll just point out the three main aspects that I want you to go back and think upon based on what all we have just touched upon. Is that you look at school leadership as a construct in relation to ownership and accountability, and then also look at a school lead, look at the specific aspects of leadership of a learning organizations, and how how you have to bend the framework so that it becomes relevant to a learning organization such as a school. And then please go look at this how school leadership is affected in a system or a network, like in general how our Zilla Parishad schools or model schools or KGBVs and so on, like how like they are in a what is the whole network of it, like what is where it is placed in organization. Okay, so I'll just these are the final thing I'll just share with you. These are three basically resources where you can learn in deep about school leadership, because already there is a lot out there. So just
Suresh Garu, I request Suresh Garu, please.
Yeah.
Brief it.
sir, just a second, sir. I just want to share this one last thing.
Complete. Yeah, you can complete.
Just one last thing, then we can take questions. So basically, these are the three websites that I wanted to share. This is the program on school leadership and management. You can go visit this. It is also accessible, the link, through the SCRT website. It has a lot of resources that you can use. This is by the National Center for School Leadership by NUPA. And then there are also a series of live discussions on school leadership. There are almost 30 videos in when you go into that website that I've just showed you, the link is here, and then or you can just type this on YouTube. So there is this one more website on in general, if you want to expand, there are a lot of things that are there to explore. So you can definitely go visit and then explore these. These are really very good resources that are out there that will help you. Yeah. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Shashank. You have covered leadership theories, about 10 leadership theories and general management theories. And you have come to the basic knowledge management also, the basics of knowledge management. And finally, at last, you have resources. You have indicated certain resources which will be helpful for the teacher trainees also to go to know more about the school leadership. There are certain questions have come from the students when you are dealing with the theory of management. Something you are in the discussion. There is something you talked about the implicit knowledge. They want to know something more about what is implicit knowledge and explicit knowledge. Could you kindly elaborate on that issue?
Shashank Garu, please.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sorry. So, sir, I talked about yeah. So, sir, basically, I talked about tacit knowledge and then explicit knowledge. So, what it generally talks about is that is a tacit knowledge is something that comes through your intellectual capital. So, with your experiences on job training and then through different uh, ex- uh, through different experience at your workplace, that whole knowledge builds up, and it's really very dynamic in nature, and it really cannot, so the knowledge that, for example, you have, that came from your experience, or anybody else has that came from their experience, that really cannot be documented in a proper codified manner. So that kind of knowledge that is there is known as the tacit knowledge. And then explicit knowledge is, the in general, the policies, for example, the new education policy that is
Yeah,
there.
that available, that is generally usually available in the document
Yes,
forms.
yes,
It's so,
document form.
yeah.
Yeah, so for example, any artifact like a pilot project that has been conducted, so the documentation of that project, and
That indicates the results, reports,
results
वगैरह, वगैरह.
reports,
Yeah.
research reports. So that is, sir, more in the explicit knowledge, which is tangible.
Okay. How about someone has posed a question, of course, very simple one. When you're talking about the knowledge management, something they pose a question, how the knowledge management is related to database. That's
So,
what
sir,
they put a
yes,
question.
sir. It's good that at least they have like asked this question, because I couldn't really cover it. So basically, database is the start, sir. Like, for example, I explained the DIKW model. So the database is the D in that framework. The database is a repository of knowledge. From that knowledge, you have to put meaning or context to it. For example, in a school context or in your classroom context, how that database is useful. So once you put context to it, then the whole process of information, knowledge, and wisdom, it starts. And then that is the starting point of knowledge management, to know at least where the database is. Then the whole process of information converting into knowledge, and then the knowledge
Yeah.
converting into wisdom happens.
That is, there are certain stages for the knowledge management. Ultimately, it leads to the vision, but the basic it starts from the data. Data is a very raw in nature, so that you have to organize it very meaningfully. Okay.
Yes.
I do believe. Yeah, and another question, of course, not relevant to present topic. Still, of course, it comes because we have talked about the organization. We have talked about the leadership styles. We talked about the leadership theories. But when these people, one question has come, of course, confined to very classroom specific. That's what. What are the best methods to assess good leader in a classroom? I don't know whether it is referring to a teacher or whether it is referring to the student. I'm not sure about that one. That is a question has come in the chat box.
Yes, so I'll respond in both manners. So like through teacher's perspective and through a student perspective as well. So when we're talking about the student, so sir, as I said, like leadership is very subjective. I mean, but the more ethical way to go about it would be the child who is supporting his or her peers a lot. That can be said as a good trait for it, and it's very subjective. Like in a particular situation, how a certain child behaves as a leader is very subjective to the n number of classrooms that are there. So that has to be observed by that a teacher who is in the class. And so for a teacher as a leader, so there is a lot of traits that are there. how like so the basic would be the kind of innovation that they're bringing into the classroom for uh, the learning to happen. So that can be one basic of it.
Yeah, I appreciate this question because, of course, it's a two dimension. One is directing to the students how to nurture the students in the classroom. One thing, and the second one is identifying the role of teacher as a leader. That means, of course, that in the school organization also, generally it is believed that school heads are only the leaders, but it is not so. Apart from the school head, there will be a leaders at different levels. Perhaps the teacher himself is a leader in the classroom, or one of the leaders in the organization. So one problem is that actually, when you're talking about the school leadership, generally, particularly the school level, we are noticing that whoever the good HM or school head, the school functions very smoothly. But when he will be shifted by means of transfer or retirement, again that institution will come back to the original form. That means what are the developments that took place, it will get rid of that one and it will go down. That is usually happens. That means what I mean to say here, leadership, why the leadership is not becoming institutionalized. When we are talking, just we are taking the leaders as an individual, but we have to take the organization as a leader. So in that, I think we have to focus how to make our organizations as a leaders. So that in that way we have to think, because there are business leaders of there will be you will find automobile leaders out there. That means the whole organization is projected in a leadership that is known for the innovation or dynamism or something. So in that way we have to focus, I think, rather than an individual, as an institution has to grow, it has to that space should be created, I think. What is your idea about this one?
Yes, sir. Like for example, I also believe a lot in the servant leader theory. That is the most relevant, because that talks about this only.
Yeah, that's what. That should be.
Organization, like growing together, like at as organization as a leader, rather than certain individuals, because individuals will definitely leave, but if it's nurtured as the leadership is nurtured as an organization, it will definitely grow rather than suddenly stop growing.
Yeah, that's a problem with our institutions that we are witnessing. As long as a good HM is there, it goes well. After that, again, there's a problem.
సోమశేఖర్ శర్మ గారు, ప్లీజ్ క్వశ్చన్స్ ఉన్నాయా?
యా, శర్మ గారు చెప్పండి.
సోమశేఖర్ శర్మ గారు, క్వశ్చన్స్ ఉన్నాయా?
సార్ నమస్తే. సార్ నా వీడియో బ్లాక్ చేశారు సార్. బ్లాక్
పర్లేదు ఆన్ చేస్తారు, మీరు మాట్లాడండి.
ఆడియోతో మాట్లాడు, ఆడియో ఉంది.
ఆడియో. థ్యాంక్ యూ సురేష్ అన్న. ఇట్స్ ఎ వెరీ గుడ్ డిస్కషన్ అన్న, రియల్లీ. అంటే దిస్ ఈజ్ మోర్ రిలేటెడ్ టు, ఐ థింక్ దిస్ ఈజ్ మోర్ రిలేటెడ్ టు ఆర్గనైజేషన్ అదర్ దాన్ education institutions, these theories. Just I want to know what are the main traits of a school leader? What are the main traits, main qualities of a school leader? Because this is very, very important now. We are all been talking about good school leaders. So what type of qualities you have to develop in school heads or teachers or students to make them as good leaders at school level? Because we are more I am confined about schools only, because that's why I want to know from you, just what are the important qualities of a good school leader? Just let me know what are the main qualities. Sir, am I audible?
Yes, sir. So I think that Suresh sir can also add to this, because he is there. So I'll just sir, basically I'll just start by answering why I just introduced this, sir. So basically the whole concept of school leadership and the whole concept of leadership, I just wanted to touch on the foundations of it, and somehow some way or another way, this everything is connected in a manner. So that's why I just wanted to touch upon all. So it's just so that's why I just touched upon all this. And sir, in general, if you ask me, a great like traits of a school leader would be, a school leader can, I think, really uh, it's similar to how any other leader would be like. It's like the ability to motivate the community, the ability to the whole the school community partnership. And then the leader can also be able to identify, acquire, create and organize a lot of dialogue between all the stakeholders, is what and also able to share the good practices that the school leader is doing in his or her school across, is what I think are the main traits that should be there. Suresh sir, if you can, like, if you want to add, definitely.
Yeah, a lot of things are there. Of course, there's because you have already cited so many 10 traits. Okay, that 10 traits will come into the picture definitely. Of course, for school leadership, this particular trait, you cannot say this particular, but all 10 traits will be dominating, and some more traits will also will pay to make a leader. So many traits will be playing a role. We cannot single this trait is we'll find. But generally, the school, in the school leadership, you will find it should be a solution seeker one. You should be very innovative, and you should have certain vision about the school organization, and you should have the followers. Followers means not blind followers. He should lead the change. He should lead the team. That's what, these are the essential characteristics for the, and you have to build, the motive is to build our school as a learning organization. How it should be the learning organization, that depends on the school head as well as the support of the staff. And of course, as you cited, the communal, that community help and SMCs, of course, different or help you can take different from different quarters. So how to, team building is very important. That is a very important factor. You cannot go as a alone. You have to build the team. That's what I told. The succession of team should be there. So in that way, it should flourish. So there are so many theories and so many principles are there. For every leader, of course, it should be dynamic and it should be trustworthy. There's so many characteristics are there. Characteristics, okay, it's naturally it's applicable to the education level, education also. I think these are the certain characteristics are necessary. You have to build the confidence, good motivator, and a particular role model. That's very important. The problem is that role model, he should be the role model. He should be the exemplar. If that happens, then the followers will follow. That means whatever the things that we are seeing in the political climate, something different. Don't bring the political climate to the education. That cannot be. I think that's not a best example, what I believe. So you see the professional organizations. I already cited few organizations. Okay, say automobile organization, IT industry organization. So how the innovations, how they are developing the innovations, how they are becoming a market leaders. What is the innovation in their product? What is the innovation in the organization style of functioning? So that things we have to observe. In the same fashion, in our schools also, we have to develop this climate. We have to develop this organization. So I think that is a key area where we can focus.
Thank you, Suresh garu. Next, Madhav madam, ఏమైనా questions ఉన్నాయా?
Thank you, Shashank sir. Can you explain important strategies of classroom management? తెలుగులో ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేస్తే బాగుంటుంది సార్. ఇంకా
ఓకే మ్యామ్, ఐ జస్ట్ ట్రై చేస్తా. బట్
ఓకే సార్.
యా, సో మ్యామ్ అగైన్ ఇప్పుడు దాకా మన సురేష్ సార్ కూడా డిస్కస్ చేసింది, ఇంకా లైక్ మోస్ట్లీ కూడా లార్జ్లీ కవర్ అయిపోయినాయి. బట్ ఒకటి ఏంటంటే, మనము లైక్ ద మేజర్ థింగ్ ఏదైతే వస్తుందో వెన్ క్లాస్ రూమ్ మేనేజ్మెంట్ కింద, మనము ఏంటంటే వీ నీడ్ టు స్టార్ట్ థింకింగ్ కంప్యూటేషనలీ. సో ఏంటంటే సోషల్ సైన్స్లో ఎందుకంటే ఇది క్లాస్ రూమ్ మేనేజ్మెంట్ అంటే మేనేజ్మెంట్ ఇస్ మోర్ టువర్డ్స్ చాలా వేరియబుల్స్ ఉన్నాయి వెన్ ఇట్ కమ్స్ టు చిల్డ్రన్. సో వీ నీడ్ టు think more about the like the పాత క్లాస్ రూమ్స్ ఎలా ఉన్నాయో లైక్ దట్ క్యారెట్ అండ్ స్టిక్ మెథడ్, అది కాకుండా we need to recognize a certain pattern, and based on that I think if we act by understanding the intentions and then trying to predict their likely responses, and then through collaboration, I think that is the best way to go forward is what I think.
Thank you, sir.
ఓకే.
దీంట్లో యాక్చువల్ గా అంటే
ఓకే.
మటుకు క్లాస్ రూమ్ మేనేజ్మెంట్ దర్ సో మెనీ ఫ్యాక్టర్స్, బట్ ఇక్కడ వీ హ్యావ్ టు అండర్స్టాండ్ ద children we have to understand, and we have to how to cater their needs, how to cater their individual differences, how to facilitate the learning. ఇక్కడ ఈ ఆస్పెక్ట్స్ లో ఎక్కువ ఫోకస్ చేయాల్సిన అవసరం ఉంటుంది. లర్నింగ్ మేనేజ్మెంట్ అంటే ఐ మీన్ యూ హ్యావ్ టు ఫోకస్ ఆన్ ద లర్నింగ్ రాదర్ దెన్ ద టీచింగ్. సో ఈ లర్నింగ్ మేనేజ్మెంట్ లో వాట్ రిసోర్సెస్, వాట్ ఇండివిజువల్ నీడ్స్, how we can deploy the resources, how to cater their individual differences, and how to track their progress, ఇవన్నీ కూడా క్లాస్ రూమ్ మేనేజ్మెంట్ కిందనే వస్తుంది. యాక్చువల్ టీచింగ్ బదులు ఇప్పుడు ఫెసిలిటేషన్ ఆఫ్ లెర్నింగ్ అనేది మనం ఎక్కువ మాట్లాడుతున్నాం కనుక క్లాస్ రూమ్ మేనేజ్మెంట్ ఆ స్విచ్ ఓవర్ అయినప్పుడు అట్లా ఈ ఆస్పెక్ట్స్ రిసోర్స్ మేనేజ్మెంట్, రిసోర్సెస్ డిప్లాయ్మెంట్, ఈ అంశాలు కూడా దాంట్లో వస్తాయని నేను భావిస్తున్నాను.
ఓకే,
Thank
థ్యాంక్
you,
యూ.
sir.
Shashank ji, one more question from my side. You said the skills are changed. 21st century skills are changed, and now just you have to develop a new kind of skills among the children. You said that communication, creativity, collaboration, and other critical thinking. 4 C's, you said 4 C's. What is the role of a leader to develop these skills among the teachers and students? Just how, what is the role the leader has to play? Because these skills are most important. Problem solving also one of the new skills that we are adapting in 21st century. So what is the role of a school leader? Thank you. My
Basic
question is
rules-
more.
Yes, so basic rules, sir, would be like the starting point would be to develop these skills only, because they need to first understand the whole 21st century needs, and then they need to try to embed it into their own the whole facilitation and teaching learning process. Because when we like for example if we take an example of language, it's not just enough for the teacher to make sure the child can read and write, because if you see most of the examinations at the international level as well, they are even at the national level as well, they're moving more towards so critical thinking and creativity. So for from the top of my mind, if you look at IELTS and TOEFL and certain such exams as well, they test you based on the reading comprehension and such more methods. And then most of the these are all basically the maybe the commanding principles that first we need to learn before we can actually impart it. So that's like the surface level of it.
Render, क्या questions?
నరేందర్ సార్ అయిపోయిందా, ఇంకా ఏమైనా క్వశ్చన్స్ ఉన్నాయా?
Questions, I am level.
కనెక్ట్ అయ్యలేరా నరేందర్ సార్?
నరేందర్,
స్క్రీన్
శ్రీనివాస్ రెడ్డి, నరేందర్ సార్ కనెక్ట్ అయ్యలేరా?
ఉన్నాను మేడం, కాకపోతే అతను బయటికి వెళ్ళి వచ్చినట్టుంది, ఇప్పుడే జాయిన్ అయ్యారు.
ఓకే, మ్యూట్ అయిందేమో. ఓకే, అనురాధ మేడం మీరు కన్క్లూడ్ చేసేయండి.
ఎందుకు నరేందర్ ఉన్నారు కదా, నరేందర్ సార్?
అది ఏదో కనెక్ట్ అయితే లేదు, అది అంటే ఉన్నాడు, ఆడియో ఏదో ప్రాబ్లం ఉన్నట్టు.
ఓకే ఓకే, శశాంక్, థ్యాంక్ యూ ఫర్ యువర్ క్లాస్ ఆన్ లీడర్షిప్, స్కూల్ లీడర్షిప్. అండ్ సురేష్ సార్, శశాంక్ తో పాటు లీడర్షిప్ మీద మా స్టూడెంట్ టీచర్స్ కి కొన్ని మీరు కూడా బేసిక్ కాన్సెప్ట్స్, ఎట్లా స్కూల్ ఫంక్షనింగ్ లో వాళ్ళు ముందు తరంలో టీచర్లుగా అయిన తర్వాత ఎట్లా బిహేవ్ చేయాలి, స్కూల్ లీడర్స్ గా ఉండాలంటే ఏం చేయాలి, విషయాలన్నీ బాగా చెప్పినారు. థ్యాంక్ యూ శశాంక్.
థ్యాంక్ యూ మేడం.
సురేష్ సార్, శర్మ సార్ అండ్ మాధవి మేడం. థ్యాంక్ యూ సార్.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shashank garu, Suresh garu, for giving this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Namaste.